こんにちは、横川ゆきです。今日はですね、カナダ人のお友達、クリスとのリアルトーク第4弾をお届けしようと思っています。で、第4弾、一応最終話になるんですが、第4弾ではですね、クリスから英語学習中の皆さんに向けて、こういうことを気をつけたらいいんじゃないかっていうアドバイスをもらったので、それをお届け、まずしようかなというふうに思っています。で、その後にですね、英語のアクセント、いわゆる訛りですね、ある地域で話されている特有の英語の話し方って言えばいいですかね。それについてですね、クリスがちょっとお話をしてくれたので、それも一緒にお届けしようと思っています。で、あとはですね、最後にローマ字がいかに素晴らしいものか、日本でね、ローマ字ってやりますよね。子供の頃に習ったりしたと思うんですけども、ローマ字のですね、システムについてもちょっと熱く語ってくれてますので、その辺も楽しんでいただけると嬉しいです。というわけで、行ってみましょう。どうぞ。
Do you have any advice to give the English learners in Japan, to improve their English skills?
Yeah, so I mean, my personal experience with Japanese people who have some functional English, and this is coming mostly from work, I find, but I've also come across it in Japan too. People who learn English, they have this tendency to do a pretty good job learning the grammar, learning the vocabulary. They have a fairly good vocabulary, but for some reason, they make like deliberate mistakes on very, very easy things
Mhm.
because they're not used to the way that English people talk. So,
Mhm.
for example, you guys have vowels on the ends of every word, even syllables. You have vowels on the end of everything. So,
Yeah.
for some reason, I find that people who can speak a decent amount of English already, they still say stuff like ando or McDonald's or Apple computer or Gyaru friendo. Everything has to have a vowel on the end of it.
Yeah.
So they're saying English words, but with extra letters on the end of it, which is
Uh-huh.
totally wrong. But
Mhm.
obviously, they're not stupid. They know the language well enough to put together, several sentences in a row and have a conversation with you. But they haven't learned this stuff properly because I guess it's too difficult for them at first, and then they just get used to making this mistake and they just continue to do it over and over again until it becomes natural to make this mistake.
Mhm.
So my recommendation would be to not make that mistake from the very beginning. Try to learn the correct way to end words without vowels on them. That sometimes
Mhm.
the sounds are difficult to do,
Mhm.
like and might sound awkward if it doesn't have a vowel on the end of it, but you have to practice that. That should be like lesson number one, is learning how to say all of the different syllables, I guess, in the language. Just like for me, when I learned Japanese, I had to learn how to sound Japanese. I had to learn how to pronounce things according to your style of pronunciation, according
Mhm.
to the vowel sounds that you have, according to the letter combinations that you have.
Mhm.
So that should be part of the fundamentals. And also,
Mhm.
I think that there's also a habit, I guess, in Asia in general, not just Japan, but in all of Asia, the teachers tend to be not very good at speaking English themselves. They're bad teachers. They, they teach 30 kids at a time the incorrect way to say things. It's just poor pronunciation. And they probably
Mhm.
shouldn't be teaching because they haven't learned the language themselves yet.
Maybe, yeah.
It's not just like a slight accent I'm talking about. I mean, it's like really, really bad. So,
Mm.
I mean, they should just take some pronunciation lessons or something and learn how to say the words correctly, and then they'll be teaching students the correct habits so that they don't make these mistakes again. So
Mhm.
you don't want to pass along bad knowledge. That's almost a crime.
Mm.
You want to pass on good knowledge, not bad knowledge.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I agree with you in a way. I mean, I think most of the school in Japan in English classes, basically the teacher teaches the grammar and the reading skill.
Hmm.
Maybe, yeah. I think that's like 70% or 80% or so.
And
And
that's the
then
easy part. That's the part that you guys pick up very well, right? Like you're very good at that. And
yeah, I
that's
think so.
really important too, because English is a weird language and there's too many exceptions, and it's just a broken
Yeah,
language to begin with. So,
yeah.
you really do need to understand the grammar intimately. You
Mm,
need to memorize a lot of things because there's too many
mm,
exceptions. So, there I can't really help because there's no rules to go by. You just have to try to memorize things. But it's helpful to make associations, like I said earlier. Use music, use video games, use things that you already enjoy doing that you're going to remember naturally, and just have English in there so that you're forced to be exposed to it. And then you're going to remember it because you enjoyed whatever it was you were doing, listening to the music or playing the video game. And that will help you to pick it up through osmosis, and it'll be more natural way of learning. But yeah, don't try to learn how to speak naturally from your high school teacher. It's probably not the best idea. Just use that for the grammar, and that's good enough.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, yeah, teaching grammar is, I think it's really better. I mean, the really good thing in school, because usually like the native people, I mean, native language people can't teach that native language grammar properly because we use it naturally. But the non-native people can't teach the other languages grammar because they learn like how can I say, logically before. So that's why they can explain it well. So I think, yeah, learn grammar from the like non-native teacher is really nice if the teacher has some kind of skill. Yeah, but as for the pronunciation thing, I mean, native speaker is a perfect choice because, yeah, they are native.
Yeah, I mean, like I think it really, you really have to differentiate between what you're learning at a given time, right? If you're learning the grammar, if you're learning the rules, probably don't go for the native speaker. Go for another Japanese person who already learned English, because like you said, they just learned it. So they already are paying attention to these rules. They remember these rules. And somebody like me, I might have a hard time giving you a rule because I don't need it for myself. I don't think about it. So it might be difficult for me to teach it. But that's just for the grammar, right? But for the pronunciation, then you need the native speaker because they really will, you can hear how it sounds correctly. Or, even if you go on Google nowadays, you can just type anything into Google and Google will say it for you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it really sounds natural nowadays.
Yeah, it's not that bad. Nowadays, the technology is so good that you can get English in any accent you want. You can get British English or Australian English or even Indian English. Any kind of English that you want, you can get that accent and hear how it sounds correctly. So I'm not sure if I'm causing you, if I'm doing more damage than good by influencing you with my Canadian English accent, but if that's what you are, trying to learn or not, maybe the American style is more popular. I don't know.
Yeah, basically we learn American accent in school. And
But
also,
the American accent is broken down into many pieces too. I mean, you've got your Southern accent, you've got your New York accent, you've got your Boston accent. There's different accents even within the United States, but what you hear on the news will always be very much similar to Canada, actually.
News means like CNN or...
Yeah, like if you listen to, well, I wouldn't say the president because the president has his own accent, but yeah, if you listen to the news people, if you listen to the people on CNN, yeah, they generally have an accent that is similar or comparable to English, Canadian English. And same thing in Canada. We have the East Coast accent, and we have the Toronto accent, and we have the Alberta accent. So we have different accents too, but again, on the news, it's very normalized. So there's basically only one accent for news coverage.
I see. I mean, can you teach me some Toronto accent?
Well, I can't teach you a Toronto accent because that's what I'm speaking right now.
Okay.
But I could. I mean, like there's the East Coaster, like the Newfoundland and Nova Scotia, that type of accent, and they talk kind of like Scotland or Ireland, like because a lot of the original Canadian settlers came across the Atlantic Ocean by boat, on the Titanic, for example, and they came from those countries, from Ireland and Scotland, and obviously Britain too. But Britain kind of became Canada and the United States, and the accent that I'm speaking is sort of modified from the original British accent, I guess. But a lot of people in the East Coast, they kept the original Scottish or Irish accent that they had, and it became part of the Canadian English that they speak today.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And sometimes when they speak really quickly, you can barely tell that it's English at all because it's very kind of choppy and kind of fast and muddled kind of English. It sounds like that. They understand each other perfectly, but it's difficult for other Canadians to understand them sometimes.
I just feel that like Scottish accent is kind of more like strong.
Yeah, I guess you could say. Well, I mean, it would sound strong to somebody who's not familiar with it. But yeah, like it's just less adapted or less changed over time. It keeps more of the original European accent rather than having changed over time like Toronto did.
Oh, I see.
It probably has to do with trade routes and business and all of that, right? Because Toronto is a major business center. It is the major business center of Canada, and we do a lot of trade across the border with the northern states, like Michigan, for example. A lot of car industries in Michigan. So people in Michigan talk very much like we do. But if you go to Alabama or Kentucky or Georgia, one of those places, you're going to get a very strong Southern American accent, which sounds very different.
I see.
I guess for Japanese people trying to learn English, you first have to determine, what type of English do you want to learn? And for most of you guys, I guess it would either be between two things. You would either want to learn the news type U.S. English, like what you would hear on the news, or you would go for the received British, that type. A lot of people prefer that because there's a lot of schools internationally, like the English that the Indians tend to learn is the British type with the British accent. So that's another popular choice, but it depends on how you want to use the language. If you want to use it for work or you have friends in another country, you should learn whatever makes sense for you, obviously. But the grammar is mostly the same, and it's just the pronunciation's a little bit different. So that's why learning from a foreigner for the pronunciation part is essential. Grammar you can get from anywhere, a book or a teacher, whatever.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, as you mentioned, like British English accent is also the second major option here to learn English in Japan. I mean, most of the pronunciation textbook is related to the American English, but only some of them are related to British. And then the people who really love British accent, or maybe people who really love England, they tend to learn them.
But you've learned quite a few languages already. You've dabbled in German and English, and what was the other language that you tried to learn? Was it French or something? What was the fourth language?
Sorry, the language I learned, you mean?
Yeah, there were four languages, I think, in total.
I mean, Japanese. Japanese is native, but the English, German, and Chinese.
Oh, Chinese. Okay. Yeah, actually, I tried to learn Chinese before I tried to learn Japanese, actually, because I thought Chinese would be, a logical choice because it's the #1 language in the world for population. The most people in the world speak Chinese. So I thought, well, it's an obvious choice, right? You're going to be able to use it the most out of any other language. But after spending maybe how many days? Like one week, I think I spent learning it. And I immediately quit after 1 week because I was like, this is impossible. I can't do this. It's way too hard. The tones and the way it's very monosyllabic, like everything is single syllables, and it sounds so different than the way I'm used to talking. I found Japanese was very much similar, even though the grammar is a little different and the words are very different, but the flow of it was quite similar, and I thought it was much easier for me to speak in a monotone and not have to worry about tone and all of that, and it just, the rules were very easy to learn and all of that stuff. So yeah, I switched over to Japanese very quickly, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah. I mean, many people mention that Japanese pronunciation is too easy.
It's actually sometimes it feels like it's Italian. Like Italian kind of sounds similar.
Yeah, it sounds vowels, more like
A
vowels.
lot of the words end in vowels.
Yeah.
It has that kind of like like a flow, or the sound of the language is similar, I guess, in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm Italian, so I thought this is not that much of an adjustment for me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I see. And also like Spanish is as well, like it has a lot of vowels, I think.
Well, Spanish, French, Italian, they're all the Romantic languages. They're all derivative of Latin.
Mm-hmm.
And English, to a degree, is also Latin derivative too. A lot of people make the argument. I'm sure it's perfectly, true that English is more similar to German. I've heard that over and over and over again. I just don't see the evidence in it, though. To be honest, when I look at German, I can't read any of it. Like I can't understand more than like 1% of German. Maybe I find a word here or there that's similar, but for the most part, I really don't understand anything about German. But if I just look at Italian or Spanish or French, I can almost read it like without any problems. And I don't know those languages fluently. I never really learned them, but I can read them automatically just because they're similar to English in so many ways.
When I learned German, I thought that and many people mention that German and English is quite similar. So I thought so at first, but yeah, totally different in the
Then
end.
you got
I think.
surprised, right?
Yeah.
Well, German, I think the way they said it is like the way that it's spelled is exactly the way that you say it. There's no weird silent letters or anything like that. If it's spelled that way, then you say it the way it's spelled, Thank God for the Romaji, because the Romaji really saved me, because Chinese has its pinyin, but pinyin is no good. It's spelled very poorly, and it doesn't represent how the words sound in English. But Romaji is quite accurate, I have to say. It's pretty good teaching aid. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, Romaji is super great system, I think. Yeah. Yeah, it completely showed that how the Japanese pronunciation is like with alphabet. So yeah, that's totally great, I think so.
It's nice that people try to make it easy for people to learn the language, Otherwise, I would be, in a difficult spot trying to learn with characters. I don't think that would go very well.
Right. Yeah, I just remember that when I was a child, I wrote some diary with Romaji when I learned alphabet, how to write alphabet.
Oh, really? That must have
Yes.
been even worse for you than it would be for me, because for you it's like speaking in syllables or something. It's like so awkward. People get angry with me when I try to use Romaji with them. Like I never knew this. Like I always thought that I was doing the right thing, that I was trying to be polite. But I just found so many people were actually irritated with it.
Yeah, because I mean, like we have like 3 letters, like hiragana, katakana, and kanji, and also when we use like 3 letters, it's really easy to read for us. I mean, for example, like when you write the sentences with all hiragana characters, it's totally difficult to read actually.
Well, some of the words
we can read it, but it's so. I mean, how can I say? Like mixed style is easier for us because maybe we get used to it, and also it's more like the number of letters are quite lesser compared to like all hiragana and all romaji like that. So that's why some people I think irritate with message
it's too
romaji.
awkward. It's clunky, like it's awkward. And I never realized it, because obviously I'm not the one reading it. But now that I think about it, it's like, yeah, I can understand why they wouldn't want to read that. That would be too much effort for them to put their brain power into this.
Yes.
And they always tell me, just speak English, just speak English. And I'll be like, but why? I was trying so hard. I wanted to, I'm sorry. I have to end up apologizing to them.
Yeah. So I don't understand. I mean, they lose your chance to learn Japanese right then.
yeah, it makes you feel like, oh, I'm such a failure. I should give up.
Yes.
But no, it's okay. I never learned the written part, but I'm just going to focus on the speaking part for now because it's easier and the characters are too difficult for me at this time. Maybe later, it'll be appropriate, but right now it's too difficult. So yeah, I mean, for people learning English, it should be not a problem. The English alphabet's only 26 letters. They're very easy letters to draw. So I don't see it being a roadblock or, an obstacle to learning English. But the other way around, learning Chinese, learning Japanese, it's not quite the same for us. It's a little bit more difficult for us because we just aren't used to putting so much artistic talent into drawing a letter. Every character is like drawing art or something. It's just, and I know you guys took like calligraphy and lessons on how to do brush strokes in school, right? At least the older generations used to do that. They used to do penmanship to make sure that you drew the character correctly. But for us, spelling was really kind of not really an issue. Even if you were bad at it, it still came out intelligible. You could still tell what people were writing.
はい。というわけで、第4弾いかがでしたでしょうか。クリスからのね、英語を学習している皆さんに向けたアドバイスとしては、発音をちゃんと練習した方がいいよ、学んだ方がいいよっていうことでしたよね。でこれについてはですね、私もクリスに同意です。発音を、なんて言うんでしょう、ネイティブと同じ発音をしなくてはいけないというふうには全く私は思っていないんですけれども、ただですね、発音がやっぱりネイティブに近い発音ができると、聞き取りもですね、すごいしやすくなるっていうメリットが一つあるのと、あとですね、自分の話してる英語がですね、やっぱり相手に伝わりやすくなるんですね。英語ネイティブに対してもそうだし、非ネイティブ、英語を普段ネイティブとして話していない人たちにとっても、やっぱり発音がネイティブに近いものであった方が、向こうが理解しやすい。なので、発音はやっぱりですね、いいに越したことはないかなというふうに個人的には思ってます。そういう意味ではですね、私も他の言語を学ぶときには発音は最初にがっつりやってちゃんとなんでしょう、その言語の発音を学んでからいろいろ音読やったりとかですね、そういうことをするっていうふうにしてるんですね。で今ですね、発音自分ちょっとあまりうまくないかなって苦手かなって思ってらっしゃる方でもネイティブの話してる話し方ですね、それをですねよく聞いて、でそれで真似ていくようにすれば自分の発音どんどん良くなっていきます。ネイティブに近いものになっていくことができるので全然ですね落ち込む必要もないし、全然変えることができるので、ネイティブの発音をよく聞いて真似するってことをして練習していただけるといいんじゃないかというふうに思っています。はい。というわけで、今日もご視聴くださりどうもありがとうございました。チャンネル登録と高評価ボタンですね、ぜひぜひよろしくお願いいたします。あと、感想もコメントでお待ちしております。であと、それからですね、カナダについて、あるいはトロントについて、こんなこと知りたいなとか、ある方はですね、ぜひコメントでお知らせください。またですね、クリスとそういうことについて話をして、ビデオとか上げられたらいいかなというふうに思っているので、ぜひですね、ご連絡いただけると嬉しいです。はい。というわけで、どうもありがとうございました。また次のビデオで会いましょう。また。